I think space is this amazing place not only to speculate about innovation and us exploring other areas, but I think it's also this interesting space because we're not sure really what's going to happen there. So I think it's an amazing opportunity to reflect on our current mode of life. I'm a designer. I often make speculative work about nascent biomedical and healthcare technologies. So I've made a lot of work in the past about how technologies might end up changing the body, or how we should understand the body as an open system for design. One particular project, Transfigurations, looked at whether parents might use surgical procedures to modify their children to benefit them later in life. So one particular example is a baby that has a high head surface area to dissipate heat in the wake of things like global warming. And there were sets of different models of babies that might question the extremities we might go to potentially help our future children. Another example, and also as part of the BioArt and Design Awards, I did a project that looked at how our brains might change if they were put into completely different biological forms. So if we could replicate our brain and then put it into a drone and then use a learning algorithm, could we view how the shape or the form of the brain might change based on a different form of body? I spend a lot of my time researching how morphological changes might happen on Earth, but as soon as you put that in a different environment, it suddenly changes how we reflect on the types of questions. But I think it also helps us reflect on what's happening on Earth. I did a project called Alter-Terrestrial. It's about at what point do creatures or non-human animals that we send into space become alien from Earth life? This project really looks at the moral decision making that happens, one, when we decide to send animals into space, and then another point, which is, should we make a decision to send them back if they adapt to life in space? There's already been a lot of really strange research sending non-human beings into space. One particular example is funded by the fast food company Kentucky Fried Chicken, where they funded sending lots of eggs into space to see if they could facilitate eggs hatching in space. But the thing that concerned me slightly is perhaps why was a company like this involved in funding this kind of research? You know, do we want to mirror problems that are happening on Earth, like industrialized farming in space, or should it be this new area where we can reevaluate the sort of problems that are happening on Earth today? We've picked 3 particular species to work on as part of this exhibit. One is the domestic pig. I think the domestic pig is quite a good example of how we've envisioned them as products for a long time. The other 2 pieces of work, one is the cup fungus, particularly because it can capture certain bacteria. There's a lot of bacteria now coating the walls of the International Space Station, and they're trying to find ways of cleaning it. So we were wondering whether we might be able to introduce a species like the mushroom that could perhaps capture some of the bacteria that might be floating around in the air that normally on Earth would fall because of gravity. And then finally, we were looking at the Napa cabbage. And because of low gravity, equally its leaves might be able to stretch and elongate. The reason that we've selected these 3 pieces in particular is because ultimately I believe that the reason that we'll make the initial decision to send non-human animals into space is for human benefit. So each of these modified species end up being modified by the environment of space, but for human means or for human desires. The reason why we've called the project Alter-Terrestrial is because ultimately what could happen is some of these species might end up actually adapting quite comfortably to life off planet, which means that could benefit them in ways that we hadn't previously imagined. So at the moment, they're not really comfortable when they leave the planet, and they're also not really comfortable when they return. But that doesn't mean that long space flight might eventually mean that some of these creatures find ways to adapt off-planet.